Another day, another story about a spoiled kid, but this time he actually attacks his teacher while like spewing a bunch of nonsense at. Anyways, this is probably one of the funniest ones we've had in a second. So yeah, sit back, relax, grab something to drink, grab something to eat, grab something to mine your Bitcoin on, grab something to do your math homework on, and yeah, let's just get right into the story. This one's something else, dude. So anyways, the subscriber who sent in the story, and you can send in stories too to my Instagram and get featured on the channel, link in description. Anyways, we're gonna call this guy Ben, and I know that's kind of a meme on the channel because I use Ben for like every other name, but I was looking through the comment section for suggestions for names to use, and someone says use Ben because haha, I use Ben all the time. So I'm actually taking your suggestions for names, and I'll be using Ben. Anyways, right, so Ben, he's a subscriber, he sent in the story. Anyways, he's in class, and he's in 6th grade. And in the 6th grade class, he has someone in his class, and we're going to call this guy Brandon. And Brandon is the spoiled kid, right? So Brandon, like, okay, so the other spoiled kids that we've had, like, the parents have done, like, extremely well. Like, they come from a ton of money, right? Brandon, right, came from a pretty standard family. And look, there's like that's like everyone else at his school. Like he was legitimately like everyone else in his school. But for some reason, right, he just always had it in his mind that he was significantly better and had significantly more money and was just like super powerful, and his family could smite you with like, I don't know, a court case or a lawsuit if you did anything. So this kid was not just like, you know, entitled and spoiled. He was also delusional. So that kind of just brings like quite the scramble of ingredients to make an interesting turn of events, especially when he actually just goes ballistic and attacks his teacher. But we'll get into that in a second, guys. Give me a second. Let me draw out the backstory a little bit. Let me give you some background. Let's flavor up the story. Anyways, right, so Brandon has been in Ben's class for a very long time, so everyone kind of knows about Brandon. And Brandon really didn't have that many friends, and, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, like, poor kid doesn't have that many friends. Nah, bro. He did this to himself. He played himself. Like, normally, you know, I'd agree, I'd feel bad or whatever. No. This kid definitely did it to himself. He had been, like, known for, you know, he was kind of known as someone who had, like, an attitude without really having a reason to have an attitude. And there's no real reason ever to have an attitude. But in the past, like, the spoiled kids have been, like, you know, they had been acting entitled because, like, they had always gotten something more and they knew, like, their parents made a lot of money or whatever. First of all, not a good reason to be a complete jackass, right? That's not an excuse. But Brandon, dude, there was literally no reason. Like, there was no base that this was on. He just imagined that his parents had, like, infinite money glitch when that just was not the case. They were just normal, which is totally normal. It's cool. Like, that's what everyone else was. He could have been easily boys with them, but no. Anyways, right, so one day in class, you know, Ben and Brandon, they're both in some history class together. This is a standard 6th grade history class. I don't know what they're learning about, but one day they're just kind of sitting there, and they're getting their test back, right? So they had a relatively big test, and, you know, Brandon, you know, obviously was bragging to everyone about how he was just, like, inherently smarter than all of them. I think this was, like, similar behavior to another girl way back in the day. I think I did a story about her, like, a long time ago. But anyways, Brandon also did the same thing, where he basically bragged to everyone about how he was going to crush it and how he's going to absolutely ace this test 100%. Like, just absolutely slam it without even having to try, dude. I'm not even kidding you. Like, he went into class and he's like, I am just smarter. I am just better than all of you guys inherently, which is a little weird. And he's like, I don't even have to study. And obviously, right, this test was like a history test. It wasn't like an interpretive one. It was a, what date did this thing happen? What is the name of the 4th king of England? Like, it was one of those, like you gotta memorize stuff tests. It's not even something, if you were genuinely like a really smart dude, you couldn't just figure it out. Like, you couldn't do the math. You couldn't figure it out, man. So obviously, right, you know, the teacher's handing back all the tests, and Ben, the subscriber, bro, he studied. He got like an 85. He did very solid on the test. The average was probably like 88, 89. So he felt he was satisfied with his result. And the teacher put every test face up on everyone's desks until she got to Brandon, and she just like, she put it face down. You know for a fact, right? You just know for a fact. Some teachers, they put all the tests face down. But if teachers put tests face up and then they come to you and the test is face down, dude, you're absolutely boned. It's GG. It's just unlucky right now. GG unlucky. Like, you got, it's just not going to work, bro. You're screwed. You failed. I don't know how else to say it. And yeah, so Brandon, you know, was still pretty confident because he's also a little bit delusional, if you couldn't already pick up on that. He flipped over his test, and Ben kind of like saw his test grade right away, and he was just looking at Brandon. And Brandon had a smug expression on his face, and then when he turned around the test grade, like his face dropped because he had like, I don't know, 62 or something. So right, Ben was watching Brandon as Brandon's face like kept like contorting. It like started like it got all scrunched up, and then it was like all like, and then he started to get angry, then shocked, confused. He went through like all 5 stages of grief within like 10 seconds in his facial expressions. But then of course he raises his hand. He's like, teacher, there must be a mistake. And the teacher's like, Brandon, like, I'm sorry. I know this one didn't go as well as you wanted, but like, there was no mistake. And he's like, no, that's impossible. And, Brandon and the teacher, they start having a back and forth. Brandon's like, no, I'm very, very certain you made a mistake here. And the teacher's like, Brandon, all right, what do you think the mistake is? He's like, I don't know, but it's very clear. Like, obviously, right, I'm just inherently really smart, and I wouldn't make mistakes like this. And the teacher's like, Brandon, come on, man. Like, I'm sorry. If you want to study with me, like if you want to like go over future assessments, so I don't know, like so that like I don't know, you do better, like that's totally fine, man. And Brandon's like, no, I don't think you understand. I'm just inherently smart, so I should have done well. At this point, the teacher's like, Brandon, come on now. Like, I'm sorry you didn't do well on this. Next time it'll go better, and I can also help you make it go better if you just want to study with me. At this point, right, Ben, the subscriber, is sitting there like, oh boy, because like they were kind of recently new into this history class. Yes, it was a pretty major assessment, but it was just like a major assessment on the first kind of unit they did. So the teacher didn't really know Brandon, and all the other kids are kind of looking around like, oh boy, Brandon's about to have another one of his meltdowns, his epic meltdowns, except this one went a little bit farther than anyone would have expected. I mean, normally you don't expect a kid to, attack his teacher, but anyways. And then Brandon begins his breakdown, right? Brandon looks at the teacher, he's like, I'm going to count to 5, and if you don't revert the grade, you're going to regret it. And the teacher's like, dude, what are you like, what? The teacher's like, Brandon, I'm not going to change the grade. And Brandon's like, 4, because he said 5. He's like, 5, 4? Teacher's like, dude, I don't. Teacher's like, I'm just not going to change it. 3, and he just looks at him, and he has a stare down. 2, and Brandon's like, you're going to regret this. And the teacher's like, regret what? And then Brandon says, 1. And he starts like, he like looks down and makes this really angry face, goes, and at this point, all the other kids are like, dude, what the huh? Like, are you okay? Like, excuse me? Are you good? Huh? Is everything okay? Are you like, what? All the other kids are just watching in just complete astonishment at this point, because this kid is actually just like melting down right in front of them. He's like, "Rrr." And what he does is he goes up, walks up to the teacher's desk. And at this point, the teacher was like stood up and was like passing around grades. So Brandon walks right by the teacher and goes right up to the teacher's desk. And at this point, right, Brandon goes up to the desk of the teacher and is like, you've made a mistake. You've underestimated me. And he takes both of his hands and he just like clean swipes the entire desk. So the teacher had like a bunch of papers, like a cup of coffee, like a bunch of stuff on the desk, all flies onto the floor. At this point, the teacher's just like, mouth is wide open because, right, and the entire class too, because here's the thing. They know that like Brandon has had like breakdowns and like goes on rants and rampages, but dude, this was a whole nother level. Like this kid must have seriously cracked at this point. And then Brandon starts to say, you poor, you filthy, you destitute vermin. And at this point, like the teacher's like, what? Huh? He's like, you scum, you slime, you are beneath me. And he goes around just like, he picks up some chair and he throws it across the room, barely, right? And he's like, secret word of the day is chair. Speaking of chairs, right? So comment chair down below. I'll try and heart as many of those as I can. And also, today's your lucky day, because if you leave a like on the video right now, you'll receive literally nothing. Anyways, right, Brandon, he's picking up a chair, throws it across the room, is like, and the teacher's just like, dude, what the fuck? At this point, right, the teacher's like kind of like assessing the situation, because he's still kind of like shocked by just what is going on. He's just like, oh my God, like, are you serious? And then Brandon goes over to the whiteboard, right? There's a whiteboard, there's whiteboard markers, and there's erasers. And he picks up a big jar of whiteboard markers, and he's like, "You shall feel my wrath." And he starts just chucking them at the teacher. The teacher's like starts to like dodge. He's like, "Oh, stop it, Brandon." And Brandon like takes the whiteboard markers and throws them. And the whiteboard markers are like foam. They're like styrofoam, dude. So they like daintily float over and like bounce off the teacher. And the teacher's like, "That's it." The teacher goes up to Brandon, who's just kind of like shocked at this point because the teacher basically runs up on him, grabs him by the collar and says, "You're coming with me," and just like pulls him out of the class. And at this point, Ben and all the other classmates are just sitting in class watching as the teacher drags him out. And Brandon's like, "You'll regret this. You'll pay. You filthy poor slime." And he's just like the most goofiest stuff anyone has ever heard. And once they leave, after like 10 seconds of pure silence, Ben just starts laughing, dude. Because at this point, right, Ben has just watched this thing and just like, what just happened? And the whole class is like talking, laughing a little bit, just like completely shell-shocked at like, because they always knew Brandon was kind of like a weird kid and like would always be like, was kind of like weirdly entitled and delusional, but he'd never had like a crazy meltdown like this, right? This is at a whole new level. And so anyways, right, Brandon, apparently he gets like about a week of suspension in school. And the teacher comes back after dropping at the principal's office and explaining what happened. And the teacher's like, he looks at the clock. He's like, "There's 10 minutes left." He's like, "You know what? I did have a lesson planned for today, but I think the lesson that, we all learned today was this: don't be that guy." And then everyone starts laughing, bro. They're all like, "Okay." And the teacher's like, "All right, this is a weird day. Just get out of here. Like, have a good day. I don't know. Like, I need to think about this." And the teacher's just like, "Yeah, class is done. You guys are good." And everyone's just like, "Okay." And they're just all leaving class like, "Oh my God, like what just happened?" Anyways, a week later, Brandon is not just, he isn't just suspended, he's also removed from the class. But like a couple weeks later, Ben like bumps into Brandon and it's like, "Hey, what's up?" And Brandon looks at him and just like keeps walking, dude. And that's like the last time Ben ever saw Brandon. I don't know if he transferred schools or he just like wasn't like in class with him anymore. But yeah,